And it's my understanding that white privilege is not telling individuals that they cannot speak, but it is a term for societal privilege that individuals have as a benefit of their white skin. And I don't think that, and I think universities would be remiss to then say that because you're white, you're not allowed to say anything that's critical of white people. I didn't know that white privilege actually went into that sphere. My understanding is it's just, and the issue is that white privilege makes people uncomfortable to talk about the societal privilege that they have.
Well, to me, what I say on campuses all the time is if you want to cite instances of racism that we can all find and fight together, that's something that I'm more than willing to stand next to you and fight, because that's obviously stuff that we should fight together. But when you just say that there is a white privilege out there in the ether and that by dint of birth your skin color generates for you an advantage, what you're really saying to people is that your view is less valuable because you have not experienced what I've experienced. And that is an identity argument, that's a character argument, that's not a rational political argument that can actually be taken on in any way. It's more of a cudgel and a club than it is an attempt to open a discussion.
Well, I think it's a demonstrable evidence that through society's demographics that being white has societal privileges that being black does not. But
we can talk about how that manifests, because that's
I'm also interested in what you just said now, is that you would stand next to anyone who has this. So, Mr. Shapiro, my question to you is, for Ms. Dunston, the tying the noose around the campus and writing messages that target African-American young students, would you consider that hate speech, and then would you stand next to her and fight for her?
As I say, I would. This is the first I'm hearing about it, honestly. But
really,
but from hearing about it, maybe because it's local. I mean, I'm from LA. But in any case, I'm more than happy to stand alongside her and fight whatever group was responsible for this. Not only more than happy. I mean, you're talking about the alt-right. Again, I was the #1 target of anti-Semitic harassment from the alt-right last year. So I'm more than happy to do all that. And I think there's one more distinction that has to be made. When we talk about cases like Taylor's, they're horrific, and the administration is siding with Taylor. Okay, the administration is doing the right thing by Taylor, or trying to do the right thing by Taylor, as they should be. And I think that we need to make a distinction between cases where the administration is actively participating in the suppression of speech and cases in which the administration is trying to do the right thing in order to punish people for application of crime.
So when you like identity politics when it serves your interests, but all of a sudden when we say, hey, can black people have the same rights as white people? Oh, identity politics. Can gay people have the same rights as straight people? Identity politics. It's called equality. Look into it. It's called America. Okay?
All right, well, I think we now know.
USA! USA! USA!
All right.
Equality for all of us!
Okay.
All right.
I want to respond to this is a
Ben,
point.
just very quickly, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
This is very quick, okay?
Very quick.
Okay, I want to respond to a point. This is a point that Cenk made last year in his debate with Dinesh repeatedly for about an hour. Was the Southern strategy with regard to the Republicans. Okay, I'd like to point out the idea that the entire South solidly moved into the Republican category because of the Civil Rights Act is historically false and has been debunked multiple times by people ranging from Sean Trent at Real Clear Politics to professors at the University of Pennsylvania. And there's a bunch of ways to debunk it, including the fact that the Congress did not switch Republican in the South until 1994. Okay, did it take 30 years for the racists to realize what was going on? 21 senators from the South were Democrats. How many of them became Republicans after the Civil Rights Act? The answer, 1. The other 20 stayed Democrats. In 1952, Eisenhower did not win a ton of the South. Eisenhower did win, however, 7 states in the South in 1956, after he sent federal troops down south. The reason that the Republican Party started to win in the South, it began in the 1950s, not after the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and it was largely due to the movement of industry down south. It was new fringe members of the Republican Party, younger members of the Republican Party, who switched over to the Republican Party in the South, not old Democrats, who remained old Democrats and are still old Democrats today.
All right. So I'm going to jump in here.
Okay, I got it. Real quick. You're right.
Very quick.
By the way, final note, sorry, Jimmy Carter launched his 1980 campaign at the headquarters, that town in Alabama that was the headquarters for the KKK. So to pretend that it was only Republicans playing the bad and evil race strategy is just a lie.
All right.
Okay.
Last word.
That was him responding to his own thing. Okay, so real quick, because you're right, we had a whole almost an hour-long debate on the Southern strategy. You guys always cherry pick certain windows of time. In this very narrow window of time, this people change to that.
I just went from 1952 to 1994.
Hold on. If you're so right, why did two heads of the RNC come out and say, yes, we did the Southern strategy, and we apologize? Why did Pat Buchanan say to me on MSNBC, yes, we did the Southern strategy, yes, we got whites to vote for us in the South, and we had a good run? Okay, it wasn't me saying it, was Republican leaders and Buchanan who did it at the Nixon campaign, admitting that that was exactly the strategy.
And there were some members of the Republican Strategy Council who were doing evil things. That doesn't mean all the people who voted for the Republicans were voting for them because of those things. And to impute that motive to tens of millions of people down south is to ignore not only every public opinion poll done, but also to fail to recognize history.
All right, I'm going to cut right in here.
So my question just sort of focuses on two sort of different things we've been talking about. One, which is focusing on the decisions people make and how that influences how successful they are. And two, you made a comment saying, in America, we don't afford you, equality of wealth or things like that. We give you equality of access.
Well, equal access to rights, not equal access.
Okay.
There is a difference. What I mean by equal access to rights, obviously, is I mean that no one's going to get in your way, that the rights that you hold are the same as the rights that I hold. But when I'm saying, and if somebody blocks them, then that's blocking your access. But what I don't mean is that a person who has $1 million in the bank is equally situated with a person with $5 in the bank, because obviously that's stupid.
Yes, and I would agree that that's stupid.
Good, we're in agreement on stupidity. All right.
Yeah, something we can agree on. I do want to sort of extend that into, I do personally believe that the number one factor in a lot of these sort of things are the decisions you make. But a lot of what affects your decisions is sort of where you start out, and sometimes that's like a long sort of cultural argument and things like that. True. But other times, it's something more basic like, well, if you weren't born into as wealthy a family, it's harder to go to a nicer college, and you're pressured to take another job so you don't finish high school, or you have to take care of, it's a single parent household, which you didn't decide, your parents made poor decisions.
Yes.
But then you have to take care of your little siblings or things like that. So then it becomes harder for you to maintain your job and you lose that. So I think there's a lot of sort of things that
100%
affect
this is correct, yeah.
Three sort of key tickets you've talked about that are heavily influenced by factors entirely out of a person's control.
I mean, not having babies out of wedlock is definitely not influenced by factors beyond your control. I mean, unless you have uncontrollable genitalia. So the fact is that just because you had a single mom doesn't mean that you have to follow in the pattern. Bottom line is that when you have cycles of poverty, somebody's going to have to break that at some point, and that's going to take an act of will. When it comes to graduating from high school, the number of people who are dropping out of high school because they need to, support their family is incredibly low in the United States. But if that's the case, then I'll give you an example. There's a listener of mine who's a young woman, I think she's probably 18 years old, who emailed me the other day, and she said, you have your 3 rules, right? No, don't have babies before marriage and finish high school and then get a job. And she said, I love your show. I agree with everything you say. I also broke one of those rules. So I have a baby. I had a baby when I was 15 years old. And what should I do about that? And I said, I replied to her and I said, well, what's your social structure like? What did you have your parents nearby who can help out with your kid? Do you have a church that you belong to, people who you can rely on? And she said, well, I'm not really a member of a church. I don't have like a huge social structure. I have my mom. My mom's also a single mom, because there are these pathologies where there are generations of single mothers. And so what should I do? And she said, well, I went ahead and I got my GED. And now I'm trying to go to community college, but I don't have money for childcare. I don't have money for childcare. My mom works. So what should I do? And I said, well, why don't you put together a GoFundMe and get it to me, and I'll push it out there. And so she sent me a GoFundMe. I put $100 in the kitty, and an hour and a half later, she had $6,000. The reason that I did that, and the reason that I tell this story, is not because I'm such a wonderful dude, although I am. The reason that the reason that I tell this story is because there is a world of willing people who are willing to give and help you escape these things if you want to make the effort. There's whole groups of people out there. There's whole organizations dedicated to helping you escape making bad decisions, dedicated to helping you get out of poverty. And if people need to find these things, then please email me, email your church, email your synagogue. There are entire religions dedicated to this. And this idea that there are these inescapable chains of poverty, that no decision you make can help you escape these things, if that's true, then we're not doing a good enough job on a private level. But I don't think it's true. I think the American people are the most generous people on the face of the earth, statistically speaking. That is eminently true. Republicans, by the way, do give much more money to charity than Democrats, mainly because they're religious. And so our goal as individuals, not as a society, because I don't like to talk about our goals as a quote-unquote society. Our goals as individuals should be to help people make the right decisions so they can escape these bad decisions that they were about to make. And people's goals as individuals should also be not to make the bad decisions. These cycles cannot be broken by a government coming in and trying to fix them. Government tried to fix poverty in 1964. And the war on poverty has now been going for half a century, and by percentage, the same number of people are poor. Okay, so this is just not working. We're going to need to do something else, and it's going to need to come down to individual decision making.